Welcome to Parley with the Pack, where we give our opinions on everything from movies to. Hey, what's up?
There's got to be something else we can do with our intro. We need something that pops out.
Yeah, you're right. It's a little vanilla, so to speak. What do you in mind?
I don't know, just something. We just have to get inspired. Maybe a good movie will help.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? Let's watch that movie Scott Pilgrim you were talking about in our first video. It's like the opposite of vanilla, and it should be pretty inspirational if you ask me. I mean, it's at least a really good movie.
Great idea.
If we're gonna date, you may have to defeat my 70
It's been a while since I've seen this.
Bingo. Consider our fight begun.
And I have to fight.
Yeah, I honestly forgot how much comic book style they brought into it, you know? With the words in the air and the pains for different characters.
What?
What's up? How's life? He seems nice.
Have you ever read the comics?
No, how come?
Well, I love the movie. It's such a cult classic. But when I actually read the comics, I found they were weird. And that's strange because the comics came first.
Well, it's actually strange to me because usually I like the comics. I like the originals way more than the remakes myself.
Well, in a way, the movie is the original. I gotta hand it to Brian Lee O'Malley, though, for doing his own thing and taking a chance that people might not like his ideas.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But for me, it really makes you wonder whether the story creators, when they're making something, should they make it up based on their vision, or should they make something that they know the audience will enjoy?
Hey guys, welcome back to Parley with the Pack.
I'm Alok, aka White Wolf, and this is Tammy, aka Grey Wolf.
In case you missed our last video, we're looking at what makes a good remake in movies, shows, and other entertainment media. This time we'll be focusing on how remakes entertain us.
So yeah, going back to the question we had earlier, Tammy, what do you think? Should story creators make something based on their own vision, or should they make something that they know the audience will enjoy in the first place?
I think it's more important to create a story that happens to entertain. That way you have the freedom to put into the story what you want, and if people like the story, you know it's because of your creative ideas and not you copying someone else. Take Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, for example. Most people know the movie more than the comic, and since the comic ended after the movie, you're probably expecting the movie's ending. However, the comic is completely different.
Wait a sec, spoiler alert.
You caught it this time. These are the spoilers we'll have to watch out for in this video. Getting back to Scott Pilgrim, I was very confused at the comic book ending, but I have to respect O'Malley for doing his own thing. For the people who do like it, he can be proud that he created a story that they like, not some Hollywood focus group inspired ending. O'Malley's comics are an example of writing something that happens to entertain, not entertaining the audience being constrained by what they want. Even the fact that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World has two endings is an example of writing to entertain, seeing which ending people like better. Test screenings are just this, instead of trusting your ideas.
Okay, so what about a show like Game of Thrones, for example? I mean, a show where screenwriters are creating something that's original, but it's not really what the reviewers or fans want in the first place. Because remember, in our last episode, we were talking about how season 8 of the popular show Game of Thrones was a disappointment for a lot of people, and that's putting it lightly. You know what I'm talking about. George R. R. Martin, who's the author who wrote the original books that the show adapted, was too slow to keep the story ahead of the show, and everything was what happened. It could have been a phenomenal story, it was just wrapped up in a rush. Just to remind you, in that last episode of the show, the heroine, Dany, is her name. She chose a villain in the instant. Because up to that point, she'd been like a wronged queen who's overthrowing the ruling party. It's about making life more peaceful. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, she just goes mad and burns the whole capital to the ground. Even when all her enemies are defeated. Or certainly. So, tell me, the directors of that show clearly didn't, or they clearly subverted audience expectations to the end, which is what the show became known for. I guess this wasn't really a winning strategy because most people didn't want the story to lose its cohesiveness.
I think D&D was just trying to guess what the audience wanted and was mistaken, just for the sake of shocking people. Like when Jaime raped Cersei at Joffrey's wake. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that never happened in the books. Both of them consented to the act. Or Sansa being raped by Ramses. That didn't happen in the books either.
Oh, no. You stay here, Rick. You watch.
D&D knows we'll be shocked, so they put it in anyways.
Actually, you just made me think of something. So I agree with all that, but now listen here. What if George R. R. Martin then wrote an ending that was the same as the show? So would that be unsuccessful by that standard? Because it's the same as what the audience expects. Or could it still be successful based on how it's told?
It's true if George R. R. Martin had created the same ending, some people or many people would be disappointed. But he also has the opportunity to take the time to develop the events that occur, realistically changing their actions. Maybe Cersei pulls a move so violent in Daenerys that she feels the need for revenge. Or maybe she hears that the people hate her so much that she doesn't care that they die if she razes the city to the ground.
George has carte blanche to take the time to develop events and character motivations. I also heard that there was a plan to make Game of Thrones 3 seasons longer, which would increase the opportunity to develop the story and the characters.
We could have gone to 11, 12, 13 seasons, but I guess they wanted a light.
Game of Thrones just wasn't realistic for its character arcs, and this is a show about magic, dragons, and frost zombies. It should be easier for us to suspend our disbelief since these events aren't happening in real life or reality.
Because they're using events that don't exist in real life, such as magic, expression is more important than realism.
If you think about it, the choice of visuals, I think, has a huge impact on the story being told. But I think that's regardless of whether it's the original or the adaptation. I mean, so like how come so many adults think that animated versions of anything, shows, movies, are just for kids? Or how come some people think that black and white is like classic? Well, that beats me, I really don't know. But regardless of that, I think when it comes to remakes, nowhere is this more clear that visuals matter than Disney. Especially with the live action remakes that Disney's been coming out with year over year, that's really apparent. And honestly, Disney's done pretty well with some of these. Say, Alice in Wonderland or Jungle Book. Some of these are the highest money-making films ever. Like they're now $1 billion plus club. But you still gotta wonder whether the live action versions, are they really better than the originals for the ones that are telling the same story? In general, I personally don't think so. And I think that's for two reasons. That both come down to the fact that Disney classics just have all these unbelievable things like magic. And animation is just better at that compared to live action. So, for one thing, visuals and hand-drawn 2D animations, so I'm talking about like Little Mermaid, Snow White, these like old ones there, are just way simpler than the photorealism of live action, or even that CGI sometimes. But I think it's easier for non-human characters, illustrations, and animation to show that emotion more than CGI or film there. So what do I mean? I mean, like, for example, take Lion King, which was first animated, then live action later. And there are lots of scenes in Lion King where it's not clear what the animals in live action version are feeling, even without the words. So you take an example like Hakuna Matata scene. Oh, that's my favorite. The whole movie, where Timon and Pumbaa are supposed to be really happy for the song. The animated version, they just look ecstatic. They have those big wide eyes. But in the CGI version, well, they just look like the real animals do, which is definitely not what you want when the animals are just supposed to be real people. They're supposed to represent real people. If you turn off your sound, you have no idea what they're talking about. And yeah, for visual story, that's not good.
What about Aladdin? That's a story of magic and wish fulfillment. In this world, there's also a magic carpet. In the animated version, carpet is CGI. It almost looks like it might be a real rug. The creators were expressing how they felt carpet should look, but in Return of Jafar, the creative expression for a CGI carpet is gone. It's more realistic for the animated world the characters are in, but less impressive. However, the fact that they took out the CGI goes unnoticed because carpet blends so well into the background.
Wait, that was CGI. No way, Tammy, you're pulling my leg there. What?
Yeah, I was shocked when I found out also.
No. Okay, you want to bet on this? Let me look this up right now. I'm going to look this up. If I'm right, okay, I'm looking this up. If I'm right, you're going to owe me a... Oh. Wait, what? Okay, fine. You caught me there. You're right. I'm wrong. What?
Yeah, you don't really notice until you look for it.
But how? Okay, fine. All right. The thing is, though, like, I honestly imagine that Aladdin was all animated. But I guess you do have a point. Like, carpet can be some hand-drawn animation. It won't look all that great. That's fair enough. But the other thing is, though, how many hand-drawn animated stories are there that have CGI in it? Like, really?
I guess you're right. Plus, carpet doesn't have a face, so it's a drawing reacting to a drawing.
Yeah. And besides animated animals or objects like carpet, I had another point too. Don't forget that. Same thing goes for animated people, believe it or not. Because if you think about it, cartoon people are just way better at conveying the emotions of a character, at acting, I mean, than real people are. Because you can make people with wider smiles, those shifty eyes, and lots of the expression in cartoons that no real person could possibly do in real life. I think a good example of this is, say, Beauty and the Beast. Remember that scene where Belle meets Cogsworth, Lumiere, and all the others in the castle? That's Be Our Guest. That's a song I play. Now, thinking about how the live-action version compares to that. Emma Watson plays Belle in that scene, and honestly, she just looks so bored of seeing Belle. On the other hand, with animated Belle, she looks delighted because she can look any way that the creators want her to look, with big eyes or wide smile. I mean, who would you want as an actress if you were making a movie?
Okay, but so far we've only been talking about Disney classics. What about other examples, like the MCU?
Oh no, you really want to get me started Marvel, Timmy? Alright, you asked for it. So the thing is with Marvel, I mean, comic book superheroes in general. They're similar to Disney, but at the same time, they're just so different. Now, obviously, nobody's going to deny that superhero movies have a lot of unbelievable things in them, just like Disney. I mean, say like flying, that's unreal. Or doing magic, that's unreal. Or even like alien space traveler, that's unreal for sure. But I think what makes them different is the fact that modern superhero movies, they all center around like human or human-like characters. That's the difference there. I think the larger part of these appeal of these stories has been of showing real people becoming superheroes. So the goal, unlike Disney, is not to be unrealistic. That's probably the reason why most heroes in recent Marvel and DC live action have been human. I mean, okay, except for like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. And those kind of movies are pretty rare. And to be honest, I'm not the only one who thinks this. According to Collider Magazine, this kind of trend of going towards live action started with Spider-Man in 2002. There's a real greater focus on telling the story with real characters, live action interaction, instead of just the visual effects, the corny comic effects. Like, for example, the original live action Spider-Man, remember there was a huge focus on the real Norman Osborn's backstory, becoming the Green Goblin, and for avenging his father. That was just more dramatic, that added more of a human touch to it. And in addition to that, just think about like the fact that Spider-Man, at least, is set in New York. It's set in a city where it makes more sense for it to be real live action. Because the fact is that it makes it more believable to us that a regular person could become a Spider-Man. You could be in their shoes. And I think this trend actually continued even after that. So, like, say Iron Man 2008. I remember watching that adaptation and thinking, like, the first half would have honestly just been a thriller about, like, terrorism in Afghanistan. Except for the suit, of course. Even though Marvel was one to do that, DC has done that also, to be honest. Say, like, for example, with Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy. A large chunk of that story was, at least for the 2 films there, focused on, like, gang warfare, police violence, civilian brutality, the casualties, and the justice system. Not just about like superheroes and superpowers that they have. In fact, I mean, Batman doesn't have it. So you could tell that the story is effectively just about real human characters who are interacting, and not just about like, say, a cartoon character and send people flying with flash, which is what the original Batman had been. So I think that all in all, the comic book heroes are based on real people, and it makes more sense for them to be live action remakes rather than the Disney characters.
How we deal with the story depends on the media used to create it, or how we're meant to experience the story. It makes the story more fun depending on the type of media used. Take 3D, for example. 3D allowed us to be immersed in the film. James Cameron's Avatar was designed to be in 3D. They used multiple cameras to place the viewer in the middle of the scene, for example, viewing Paul and falling all around in a forest. After that, I found many films were jumping on the 3D bandwagon. I remember watching Avatar: The Last Airbender and raising and lowering my glasses, wondering if I was actually experiencing the 3D effect. Gimmicks are entertaining, but you need to put in the effort to use those gimmicks correctly. Next, there's CGI, which has a tendency to make or break a film. The original Star Wars series had used a lot of puppetry for their special effects, but in the remastered version, they put in CGI. People balked at the new Jabba the Hutt scenes where they used the CGI in place of his puppet, and they looked on at how unrealistic it was to have Yoda fighting Count Dooku. Even Count Dooku's face was CGI'd onto someone else. George Lucas explained to his effects team the trick was to make the CGI look like a puppet. But as Mr. Sunday Movies pointed out, why didn't they just use puppets then? Puppets are real and visible to the actors, whereas with CGI, the actors have to use their imagination or look at a surrogate imitating the image they're supposed to be interacting with. Finally, I'd like to talk about interactivity. When we experience a story, we can watch it, read it, or actively participate in it. When I saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I knew it was a movie I wanted to experience just once. The theater said I could bring rice, confetti, or water guns, but I didn't know why I'd need such objects. Then the movie started upon a wedding scene. I laughed in a positive way because rice was hitting me in the head and landing in my hair, and I squeaked in positive surprise when I was hit by the audience's water guns. Finally, I had a very fun time participating in the time warp dance. Then the theater settled down and I was actually watching the movie. I was very confused at the story and I was wondering what the heck I was watching. The interactivity was necessary for my enjoyment of the film. In 2016, they remade the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they put in a live audience at some parts. YouTuber Cinematic Bennett explained that this removed the interactivity. Instead of generally responding, we're given cue cards of when to laugh and when to chastise the characters.
Anyways, so for all the talk we gave about how much we get tired of remakes, or how much we like them actually, then we still get drawn to them somehow, for some reason. I think that's because of the fact that they offer a different perspective, or a different story, or even just a different way of experiencing that story.
Well, as much as I complain about remakes, I like them, as long as they're not butchering iconic parts of the original.
Yeah, that too. Personally, I find that remakes are good, but to be honest, I like new stories. Remakes are great because of the fact that sometimes they can mix up different characters and offer different perspectives of that characters, like Sleeping Beauty and stuff that you wouldn't have ever thought of. But at the end of the day, most people or most creators do end up just recycling the same ones with like a different change in medium or something, and I don't like that. I like something new, and I like different characters.
What are your favorite remakes? Leave a comment below. We'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah, and we'd also like to invite you to join part of the pack in one of our future videos. Connect with us, and you can be part of the pack too, you know.
So long for now, and until next time, see you at the next parlay.